Self-awareness, a topic I've been hinting at in previous episodes. It's a term that is thrown around a lot these days. So today I want to clarify what it is, why we need it, and some ways I've discovered that can help us achieve more of it. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize your own thoughts, feelings, and physical well-being. It's a state of consciousness where our self becomes our focus of attention. You become the center focal point for your mind. Everything else is secondary. It's an ability that is so important as it allows us to grow as people. It allows us to get better at the things we do, whether it be with sport, hobbies, or work. It does this by granting us the ability to reflect on our activities, allowing us to realize what we could do better. Then with this insight, with time, we can work towards any goals we do set for ourselves. But arguably, something that is just as important, if not more so, is the fact that not only does it allow us to grow and improve, but it also allows us to recognize what we do well and to praise ourselves for it. I think a lot of us, myself included, when we think of why self-awareness is useful, come straight to this idea of improvement. But sometimes we need to feel good about the things we do, to positively reinforce the things we are proud of. Self-awareness allows for this greater deal of self-compassion. This is the concept of being kind, encouraging, and forgiving to our own actions and thoughts. The reason this self-love is useful is it encourages us to be more confident in what we're good at, and also forgiving when we're not at our best. Sometimes when not at our best, our negative emotions can rise. Sometimes these feelings we have internally can cause us to lose control. Imagine a time where we burst into rage or into tears. In situations of high emotion, losing control of our thoughts and ourselves normally leads to worse outcomes. Whilst, as mentioned last episode, we should listen and process these, I believe having more control of when we do is important. A heightened self-awareness allows for this. It gives us more opportunity to recognize when our emotions rise, and thus this gives us more time to help lower them again, hopefully resulting in more composure and better interactions in times of turmoil. However, sometimes too much self-awareness can lead to problems. The main one being it can lead to us having more anxiety. If we become too overly self-aware, it can lead us to overly criticizing ourselves and our actions. Too much and our own awareness can become too critical, leading to a needless loss in confidence and self-assurance. Like I always say, a balance is needed. We need to be self-aware enough to both improve and have greater control, but also self-aware enough to be kind to ourselves. Overall, I definitely think more self-awareness generally leads to a more peaceful, more positive life, but we just have to be careful we don't overdo it. So how should we go about trying to improve this skill? There's quite a few ways I've found that help, and I'll go into my favourite ones today. A word I've used before is mindfulness, and it's definitely my most used method to improve my own self-awareness. As mentioned previously on this channel, mindfulness is the art of being present and noticing both your internal and external environment. Whether it be by meditating and noticing your breathing and internal thoughts, or noticing the sounds, smells, and other senses of your surroundings. Both of these increase your ability to be mindful. Sometimes before bed, to help me sleep, I just start focusing on my breathing, and every time my brain starts thinking about other things, I gently bring myself back to my breaths. Importantly, we shouldn't judge these thoughts or ourselves for having them. But as soon as we notice, we need to accept that they happened and slowly bring our attention back to our breathing. With this practice, we become better at noticing our thoughts and feelings, and it helps us be more self-aware in day-to-day activity. The other much more accessible way I mentioned to practice mindfulness is by noticing your surroundings. Sometimes when you're walking somewhere, just focus your mind on the area. For example, with the sound of birds, the swaying of trees, or the movement of other people. By doing this, we practice using our attention. With more skill and focus, we can then much more easily focus inwards on ourselves. We become more mindful, and as a result, we become more self-aware. From my description of mindfulness, some of you may think that it is the same as being self-aware, and whilst they do complement each other, there is a slight difference. Mindfulness is about being present and looking both inward and outward. Having self-awareness also encourages an inward look, but we don't just stop at the present. We look deeper. Not only do we pay attention to how we are feeling at this moment, but we also ask why. We think about what could have led to this and how to change anything for the future. Moreover, we also don't just think about our feelings, but also our actions and interactions with others. Mindfulness definitely helps us become more self-aware, but that does not mean they are the same. Furthermore, mindfulness is not the only way to help us become more self-aware. Another way we can find out more about ourselves is by asking others. With our most loved ones, we can ask them how we come across in certain situations. It allows us to compare what we felt with others' opinions. We can compare both our own opinion on ourselves and their opinion on us, and use that to reflect and potentially change if we want to be perceived differently to how we did. Now, this is not necessarily something we should do too often, as it can become relatively annoying if you constantly ask people how you were in every interaction. But after important conversations or impactful actions, that could be a good time where you ask them how you were. Like everything, a balance is required, and in this case, it's a balance between receiving feedback but also not making every conversation about ways you can improve yourself. But if talking to others about how you are coming across is too nerve-wracking, which it definitely is, then a more personal way we can improve is if and when we do find any feedback, whether it be from others or ourselves, anything of note, we can write it down. By keeping a note of these thoughts, we can better help ourselves. It doesn't have to be a proper journal. It can be as simple as making some notes on your phone. Overall though, all of this is pointless for me to say if you yourself don't have a curiosity to look more inward in the first place. If we have no intrigue into how we are being perceived and how we are feeling, then it's almost impossible to become more self-aware. Arguably, the most important idea we must consider when thinking about becoming more self-aware is actually how much we desire to do so in the first place. If I haven't been convincing enough, and you're still unsure about whether self-awareness is even worth it, there will be more websites with more reasons in the description. Moreover, since I didn't want to make this episode too long, there will be websites featuring more ways to develop this skill as well. Self-awareness allows us to become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. It gives us more self-control of our emotions. It allows us to more easily improve. And it gives us more opportunity to become more compassionate and loving towards ourselves. There are many ways to become more self-aware, but in the end it all stems from an initial curiosity to self-discover. And that brings us to the end. If you have enjoyed today's episode, I hope you like and subscribe. Like always, the description will contain my piano notes and references. Thank you for listening to Unwind with Dan.